Welcome to the Mental Militia, uniting minds and freeing souls from the bonds of mental slavery and ruling class manipulation.
Okay, welcome back to video number 3 of the 2.0 version of the free contract color course. This one we're going to be talking about contracts. Shocking. The first thing we'll do is let's look up the definition of contract. I'm going to pause for a moment and find that before, without having you have to look here. Okay, here's the word contract. Let's look it up together. A promissory agreement between two or more persons that creates, modifies, or destroys a legal relationship. An agreement upon sufficient consideration to do or not to do a particular thing, right? And this is the key for this particular video, this word consideration, right? This is what we're going to be getting into just in just a moment. An agreement between two or more parties, preliminary step making of which is offer by one and acceptance by other, in which the parties meet and concur in understanding of terms. If they don't understand the terms, you could say, I don't have a contract, which we're going to get into. Most things in your life, you don't understand the terms. So most things in your life are not a contract. A deliberate engagement between competent parties upon a legal consideration to do or abstain from doing some act. An agreement creating obligation in which there must be competent parties, subject matter, legal consideration, mutuality of agreement, and mutuality of obligation. A generic word derived from obligatio, having many wide and various meanings. That which a person is bound to do or forbear, any duty imposed by law, promise, contract, relations of society, courtesy, kindness. Duty imposed by law or duty binding parties to perform their agreement. An undertaking to perform. I like that. That's good. That's my favorite one so far. An undertaking to perform. That which constitutes a legal or moral duty and which renders a person liable to coercion and punishment for neglecting it. That's interesting. So it's like a duty that has consequences if you don't do it. Something bad is going to happen to you if you screw around with somebody. It doesn't need to be written on a piece of paper to figure that one out. A formal and binding agreement or acknowledgement of a liability to pay a certain sum or do a certain thing. The binding power of a vow, promise, oath, or contract. Legal or moral duty as opposed to physical compulsion. Again, I'm not going to go too crazy. There's a lot here. We can keep going, but you should look up a lot of these words that I'm going over in this course with you are pretty important. So we have obligation there, and then we have one of the things I often do too, because of my religious teachings as a Scientologist, I often look up the derivation, right? And we're going to get into that here anyways in this video. Obligation, and then we can study it, a binding pledge, the background of the word, obligation, duty, responsibility, a binding. Interesting. To bind, bind up, bandage. That which one is bound or obliged to do, especially by moral or legal claims. To bind by oath is oblige, put under moral or legal obligation. Devote, engage one's faith, commit oneself or pledge oneself. To bind, bind up, bandage, put under obligation. When it comes to derivations for words, if you're looking at the derivations of the words like this, the online etymology dictionary, ETYM online, is phenomenal. And then I wanted to share one other thing with you that I think you should get. It's only a phone app, I believe. It's called Etymology Explorer. And it has a little tree, white tree with a green section around it. I don't think it's available outside of being a phone app. It breaks the words down into all these different etymology trees. You can see the meanings. You can click on individual aspects of the meanings, and you can break it down even farther. This is what it looks like, the full detail page for each individual page and usage notes. You can click on to hear the sound of it as well, but it's mainly involving the historical aspects of the word. You can see Family Explorer. You can see it breaks down hidden and shocking bridges between words and sections of words. And yeah, it's just really badass. I don't use it a ton personally, but I think it's an excellent resource that you should definitely be using. And I think that the online etymology dictionary is amazing. I've been using this every day of my life since probably 2010 or 11. These are great resources. You should have this on your phone, and you should have this easily accessed. There's an app for the online etymology dictionary too, but it's just the website. It's just a cool little app that just takes you to the website. So you can use that if you want. So we're going to look up consideration. So it's 454. We saw that word under contract. We're going to look that up, right? The inducement to a contract, the cause, motive, price, or impelling influence, which induces a contracting party to enter into a contract. A reason or material cause of a contract. Consideration is not to be confounded with motive. Consideration means something which is of value in the eye of the law, moving from the plaintiff, which is the person who's suing somebody else, the initial suing person, right? The offensive person, the person attacking the other person, either of benefit to the plaintiff or of detriment to the defendant. So again, this is a really good definition. Consideration is not to be confounded with motive. Consideration means something which is of value in the eyes of the law, moving from the plaintiff, either of benefit to the plaintiff or of detriment to the defendant. A beholding, looking at, a keeping in mind, contemplation, reflection, taking into account, act of paying attention to, examination, thoughtful or sympathetic regard, that of which should be considered. Something given in payment. Excellent. That's what we're looking for as a recompense for service. That's the one that we were looking for. Something given in payment. Now, mind you, we're going to get into this more as we go forward, but the definition of the word payment, people typically think that means to give Federal Reserve notes. That's you'll learn later on when we get into all the financials and stuff. Payment, we should actually just get into that now. It's just such an important word. Let me pause the video for 1 second. Okay, good. So we're going to look at payment now. Payment, the fulfillment of a promise or the performance of an agreement. It's got nothing to do with Federal Reserve notes, bro. I fucking hate that shit. It's got nothing to do with Federal Reserve notes. Make your payment here. Oh, that means I type in a credit card or send those green paper things from my wallet. No. You will learn a lot more of that later in the course, but please begin to break your mind from these horrible fixed ideas that are just terrible. Payment, a discharge of an obligation or debt, but this is really the ultimate simplicity, a fulfillment of a promise or the performance of an agreement, the performance of a duty, promise, or obligation, discharge of a debt or liability by the delivery of money or other value by a debtor to a creditor where the money or other valuable thing is tendered and accepted as extinguishing debt or obligation, right? Also the money or so it's more than just money. Payment means to perform or to complete some kind of obligation or whatever, right? And that's kind of the whole point. I wanted to show you that because you're going to need that definition when we get into the financials. It's going to be really important, okay? When we get into the infinite money stuff later in the course, okay? So consideration not to be confounded with motive. It's something which is of value in the eye of the law, moving from the plaintiff, either of benefit to the plaintiff or in detriment to the defendant. Let's go look at value really quick. We're going over this because these terms we're looking at are the basis of all contracts, and contracts are the basis of everything. If you don't understand these terms and you don't understand contracts, you can't have any success in the law at all. You will just die. Okay. Value. The utility of an object in satisfying... Oops, what we got here? Oh, I typed on the numpad again, I think. Damn it. Value, the utility of an object in satisfying, directly or indirectly, the needs or desires of human beings, called by economists value in use, or its worth consisting in the power of purchasing other objects, called value in exchange. So the utility of an object in satisfying the needs or desires of human beings. Pretty interesting. Pretty interesting, right? Pretty interesting definition. Any consideration sufficient to support a simple contract. Valuable consideration. This term is often used as an abbreviation for valuable consideration, especially in the phrases purchaser for value, holder for value. In economic consideration, the word value, when used in reference to property, it may mean blah, blah, blah. Okay. So you kind of get that. It's kind of cool. You probably didn't have a terribly wrong definition on that, but I just wanted to expand that out for you a little bit. It's pretty interesting, the definition. So going back to obligation, I think is where we were at just a minute ago. 1299. We can look at value here as well. Let's make sure you're still with me here. Let's go to value. Price equal to the intrinsic worth of a thing. Degree to which something is useful or estimable. Worth, price, moral worth. Let's see here. Okay, fine. Value. So let's go back to obligation. Obligation, right? What do we have here? Where were we on this? We were down here. Let's see. Written promise to pay money or do a specific thing. A formal and binding agreement or an acknowledgement of a liability to pay a certain sum or do a certain thing. So you get into an obligation and then you make a payment on that obligation. If you make an obligation to move a box across the house, by going and moving the box across the house, that's a payment. You are performing on a duty, obligation, or contract. You really have to disconnect your mind when it comes to the word payment. You have to disconnect your mind from this Federal Reserve note bullshit. Trust me. When we get into the financials, otherwise you're not going to have fun. Okay. So, what holds together a contract? It's value and consideration, right? So if we go back to consideration, and value we've already figured out pretty well, and consideration. Let's see here. Any benefit conferred or agreed to be conferred upon the promisor by any other person to which the promisor is not lawfully entitled, or any prejudice suffered or agreed to be suffered by such person other than such as he is at the time, blah, blah. Anyways, it's getting a little bit complicated. So something that moves from the one party to the other, or something that is agreed to be moved, right? A benefit to the promisor or a loss to the promisee, right? This is the most important part. I wanted to show you this. This is key. This is so key, right? But nothing is consideration that is not regarded as such by both parties. This is like massive. This is like the biggest thing ever, right? And the reason why I'm showing you this is because we're going to get into how do you change all these contracts and do all these things, and what right do you have, right? Because you're going to go in and you're going to start changing all these contracts. People are going to tell you can't do certain things. Yeah, it's all bullshit.
In the wake of the unimaginable, in the shadow of uncertainty, in the face of fear. It's time to rediscover
We can live, we can love, we can hope, we can rise, we can be more, be more.
your hope,
We can dream, we can fly, we can change, we can ride, we can be more, be more.
your purpose,
We can live, we can love, we can hope, we can rise, we can be more, be more.
your passion,
We can dream, we can fly, we can change, we can ride, we can be more, be more.
your potential.
Take your name, show your mind. Raise your head, raise it high. Don't look back, reach inside. There is more to this life.
You.
Hope, rise, be more, be more. Dream, fly, change, ride, be more, be more.
Because no matter what we may face, nothing is stronger than the human spirit.
So the two things that hold together a contract, as you saw even in the definition of a contract, if we go back, right? Let's see here. 470 was contract, right? Let's go down, 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 down. Was it 470? I'll pause it if it's not here. There it is. An agreement upon sufficient consideration to do or not do a particular thing. And then consideration. Things are only consideration if both parties agree their consideration. If they're not in agreement about it being consideration, it isn't consideration. That's the most important thing in the world for you to learn. Okay, so without consideration, if, like for example, a driver's license, you think a driver's license allows you to drive. It doesn't. It's got nothing to do with that at all. And we're going to get into that later in the course. When you actually realize that the driver's license is not giving you anything of value or consideration, and actually, in fact, it's just a type of enfranchisement that gets you to sign over stating that you're a U.S. citizen, and then they just give you this teeny little right to basically operate a vehicle on the highways to transport property and people for compensation. It's basically a job. It's the right to be a chauffeur. That's basically what a driver's license is. Once you realize that, you can say, well, wait a second, we don't have a contract because I don't consider anything that you guys are doing consideration. Right? It's very simple, right? Right now, a lot of you guys think that Federal Reserve notes are consideration and driver's licenses are consideration, and these are all consideration. And you think that being a U.S. citizen is consideration, and then what you're learning is you're learning that none of these things are consideration at all. And once you realize that these things are not consideration, and once you communicate that these things are not consideration, then boom, the contract literally just disappears, because the glue or the spinal cord that holds together the whole contract is the consideration, the idea that you are being benefited. Benefits are completely subjective. I mean, if we look up the word benefit, which we can do, I'm going to pause the video. Okay, I'm back. We're going to look at benefit here. Advantage, profit, fruit, privilege, advantage, right? If you're a U.S. citizen, a driver's license can be a benefit. If you're a non-citizen national of the United States, driver's license would have absolutely no benefit for you, right? So advantage or profit, gain, interest in contracts. When it is said that a valuable consideration for a promise may consist of a benefit to the promisor, benefit means that the promisor has, in return for his promise, acquired some legal right to which he would not otherwise have been entitled. So a driver's license, because you are a U.S. citizen and because you're in the District of Columbia, you don't have the right to transport people and property for compensation. You don't have the right to work as a chauffeur. That's what the word driver means from Title 49. We're going to get getting into that later. I'm not going to get into all that right now. Okay. So you've acquired a legal right to which you wouldn't have otherwise because you've labeled yourself a U.S. citizen, right? A non-citizen national of the United States has all of those rights and doesn't need any sort of you don't need to acquire some legal right to which he would not otherwise have been entitled. You're already entitled to all of that. See the Constitution and everything else, right? It's sort of like firearms. You need a license to have a firearm because firearms are not covered under the Second Amendment. So you need to acquire a legal right to have firearms because you wouldn't otherwise have been entitled to have them. Whereas arms, you wouldn't need any sort of a license or anything to have arms because you are already entitled to have them through the Second Amendment. You see that? So all contracts that you get tricked into have secret benefits, secret value, and secret consideration. And you think you are getting something of benefit, of value, and consideration. And that is, I'm telling you, bro, like, I'm going to go full screen on this. I'm telling you, like, what I just said and what we just cleared up is the most important thing ever. Because what's going to happen is I'm going to show you piece by piece by piece how all of these things that you think are benefiting you and you think are valuing you and you think are consideration for a contract are not. And as soon as you realize or decide to realize, I don't know, whatever, as soon as you say to yourself, well, shit, this doesn't help me at all. Bing, like literally, I'm not even kidding. It's not when you file it in or when you turn it in or when you say no. It's that moment, that Bing moment when you say, holy shit, this driver's license or this whatever doesn't really give me any benefits at all whatsoever. As soon as that happens, you would no longer consider it consideration. Bing, as soon as you no longer consider it consideration, there is no consideration, there is no benefit, there is no value. Bing, there has to be benefit, consideration, or value in order for there to be a contract. Bing, there's no contract. Bing, boom, boom. It's that simple, right? You should always be asking yourself, am I getting any value from this? What benefit am I getting from this? Am I enjoying the benefits of this? That works for everything. We're going to get into property taxes and stuff a little bit later, but I pretty much just explained all of property taxes for you. If you don't feel as though what you're paying is equal to what you're getting consideration-wise, you can sue the county. We're about ready to sue our first county, actually. It's very exciting. You can sue the county for forcing you to be involved in a contract without consideration, right? Which is that's considered forced labor and involuntary servitude and peonage, which is debt slavery, and then enticement into slavery. There's all sorts of things that you'll see that you can use and it's also fraud, obviously, right? And I wanted to cover fraud can be done here. This is the next section on this because that's pretty much all I wanted to say on that. Fraud can be done through omission or commission. Just wanted to make sure you guys knew that by not saying things and tricking someone and not being clear and direct, and then also by saying things that aren't true. There's both ways can be fraud. A lot of what we're experiencing is fraud through omission, fraud from things they don't tell us, like the definition of the word driver, right? Just to give you a teeny tiny little slice of that, 49, CFR 390.5, I think it is. Let's see, and then we have driver. Where is it? There it is. Driver means any person who operates any commercial motor vehicle. The term motor vehicle means it's commercial, right? California definition of automobile. We have your vehicle definitions straight from the California DMV website. You have an automobile as a passenger vehicle that does not transport persons for hire. This includes station wagons, sedans, vans, and sport utility vehicles. A commercial vehicle is a vehicle which is used or maintained for the transportation of persons for hire, compensation, or profit, or designed, used, or maintained primarily for the transportation of property, right? So you think you were given a license just to cruise around in a car. That's not what you were given at all. And when you realize that this is what you were given, suddenly you say to yourself, well, I don't do that. I don't need to do that. So what the fuck? How does this benefit me? You see that? Boom, bingo. Once you start asking these kind of questions, well, how does this benefit me? What exactly? You want to be an astute purchaser, an astute consumer. You go in there and you want to buy a car and you're asking all these questions and how is this the best car for me and all this kind of thing. If you do that with all your contracts, including all these bullshit contracts, it's very effective because they can't put you into any contract unless you consider it to have consideration inside of it, right? That includes driver's licenses, that includes Social Security, that includes federal income tax, state tax, sales tax. The list goes on and on and on and on and on. Property taxes, you can sue the county. Very, very fun. We're going to have a lot of fun doing that here pretty soon. I'll probably have this course done before we get into that litigation. So that'll probably be something that you'll want to be signed up for my email list in order to get notifications on that when that finally goes through. Okay. Next thing I wanted to cover here is unlawful conversion. I believe unlawful conversion. That's like if someone takes your property, like stealing, I guess. I don't know why that's here, but anyways, there you go. Unlawful conversion is stealing. I forget why I put that here. Unjust compensation, one-sided contracts, right? So there has to be adequate consideration. Let me find that for you. I'm going to pause this for a moment. So this gets into the better idea of consideration. You have consideration, and then you have adequate consideration, one which is equal or reasonably proportioned to the value of that for which it is given. One which is not so disproportionate as to shock our sense of that morality and fair dealing, which should always characterize transactions between man and man. Fair and reasonable under circumstances. Reasonably just and equitable. Right? Let me see here. Adequate compensation. No. Adequate just by itself, just the word. So we got, So adequate consideration, right? If it's not adequate consideration, what we have is what's called, I believe, an adhesion contract, right? It is a binding agreement between two parties where one party has more bargaining power than the other. The power with more power drafts the contract and presents it to the other party on a take it or leave it basis without the opportunity for negotiation, right? Let me pause this for a minute and see if I can find this somewhere else. So I couldn't find that, but I have here unilateral contract. Is a contract that only benefits one side, right? It's not really a contract as per the definition, right? Everyone has the infinite ability to contract, which is just sort of like it's all through the Constitution. It's all through like everything. So you can kind of like contract yourself into a unilateral contract that they're just not enforceable. So they're like, oh, we're going to sue you if you don't blah, blah, blah. And you're like, dude, like, no, it's not going to go anywhere in court. A unilateral contract, like a driver's license or whatever, or these other things, it's not, once you realize it's not consideration, it's just a unilateral contract. It only benefits them. And you can just get rid of it and fight them and sue them. And there's no chance that they can win. The 13th Amendment made, forced labor and involuntary servitude and all this kind of stuff illegal. So it's just like, are you forcing me to serve you in a unilateral contract? Oh, no. They freak out because they know that's like ultra fucked and illegal. This is how you get out of like everything. Like I could go through like every single individual contract like I did in the 1.0 course, But with the 2.0, I'm doing it totally differently. And the reason why is because when you guys really understand these words and you guys understand how this works, adequate consideration, value, obligation, payment, contract, and you understand how, an adhesion and a unilateral contracts work and that kind of thing, what you could do at that point is I'm going to show you an example here where you can write. So in the 1.0 course, we had something called a conditional acceptance. And I don't really use those anymore because it's more of like a defensive thing. They're forcing something on you, and then you say, oh, I accept that under the following conditions, and you make the conditions nearly impossible. It's not the worst thing in the world, right? But what's even better than that, in my opinion, because a lot of it, the whole point of this course is not to be a good defensive player. The point of this course is to turn you into an offensive maniac where you're just going after everybody. The DMV, the IRS, you don't give a shit. You're just kicking in doors. That's kind of the whole point of this course. That's kind of where I'm trying to get everybody to. That's what we need to fix this country, not a defensive boo-hoo trying to get shit dismissed attitude. That's pathetic. That's what we have now. It's not working.
It's time to rediscover the human soul. Not the mystical, the metaphysical, or the supernatural. We're talking about the source of your abilities, your motivation, your vitality. The thing that makes you, you. We're offered a dream of convenience, but what of self-fulfillment, happiness, peace of mind? No more speculating. No more of this or this, but this. It's time to find out for yourself, to look, to know. It's time to rediscover the human soul.
So what we need is kicking indoors, going fucking berserk, in a good, healthy way of like actually fixing the issues of the country, not just to be a maniac for no reason. Okay, so the better term is this term novation, right? A novation just means a change in a contract. So when you're on Facebook or something like that, and it says if you continue to use Facebook, you agree to our new terms and conditions. That is a novation. Now you think to yourself, I can't do a novation with them. You can do a novation on absolutely anything you want, literally anytime you want. You could do a novation on your IRS contract. You could do a novation on your driver's license. You could do a novation with the state in terms of corporate whatever. You could do a novation on literally any private or governmental or any other contract anytime you want. You could do 6 of them a day if you wanted to. You could send 6 different novations to the DMV in one day because you changed your mind five or 6 different times in one day. Okay? Doesn't matter. So a novation, right? I'm going to cover this with you. So this is a little bit more advanced. I'll be going into this more later on as this is from actually the new 2.0 version of the litigation that I have popping. So no one's even seen this document yet. By the time I release this course, I still probably won't have this particular lawsuit going. Maybe I will. We'll see. It's going to be around the same time period. But this is my 2.0 litigation, right? So we have a definition section. We have novational points, right? So one of the things I do in the novation is I clarify the parties. So I clarify the definition of the word person, clarify the definition of who actually was on the birth certificate. I'm not going to read all this. I'm just going to put it on the screen here, and you can read it. Let me, how do you zoom in here? I may just, here we go. Let's make this nice and big for you. There we go. So you can read this. If you want to read this, I'll scroll down this. And you can see here that there's some information about what does it mean, certificate of live birth. Let me just do a full screen on this. Are you guys still with me? Yep. Let's make this even easier for you. There we go. Because I know I'm on the lower left, so I got to be careful, make sure I'm not taking up the screen. So this goes into the various aspects of my life and these definitions and what is the certificate of live birth and what is the party and who am I and what's a person and what's a natural person and naturalization and the birth certificate and the all caps name and the trademark number and stuff. This is all a little bit more advanced, so I'm not going to get into all this right now. I'm just kind of giving you an idea of what a novation would look like, clarifying the definition of the word individual, clarifying the definition of the term natural person, clarifying birthdays. This is all part of the novational process where you can go in and you can change and clarify literally anything, right? So this is where it's going to make a little bit more sense, right? So we have other parts of the novation, right? All previous assumed or expressed arbitration agreements are hereby void due to fraud and lack of consideration, right? So what that means is arbitration is basically like you agree to not go to like an actual big boy court. And you don't have discovery in arbitration and you don't have access to a jury in arbitration. And oftentimes arbitration is like retired judges that are actually on the payroll of the company of which does the arbitration. Arbitration is literally bullshit, by the way. Don't ever. There are some people who get wins in arbitration. I'll be the first one to tell you. There are plenty of people who actually get some things done in arbitration. So if you are in arbitration now and you're a bit stuck, then it's okay. Don't feel hopeless about it. But you want to do everything under the sun, moon, and stars to kill the absolute fuck out of any possibility of going to arbitration. Arbitration is trash, okay? No parties are any longer eligible for any arbitration activities, and discovery, right to a jury trial, and all other rights of due process are hereby retained explicitly by all parties. That's the first point of novation, right? People are like, oh, I signed an arbitration agreement. Nothing that a novation can't fix. You no longer consider that an arbitration agreement is consideration? Boom. But let them know. If they don't know, that's not really going to work too well, right? You have to let them know. You have to actually send these things, right? Without prejudice, which is something we're going to get into on the next video, I think. It's a way that when you sign your name, you write without prejudice, and it's the same thing as saying, I reserve all of my rights. It's the same thing, okay? So I reserve all of my rights, and the reserving of all rights is hereby activated for both the all caps ens legis as well as myself. All rights are reserved at all times. This is getting into some financial stuff. This is the infinite money stuff. I'm not going to get into this now. So please do not try to understand this right now. I will be getting this in great detail later. That's infinite money. This is really fascinating. I haven't even tested this yet. This is just a little idea I had. So Title 18 is like for criminal statutes, right? And you can't use criminal statutes as what they call a private individual. They say no private right to action. I already had a bunch of problems with this in the courts, right? I had no clue this was part of the problem, right? So what I did was I created a novation, and it adds all the Title 18 crimes, which normally don't have a private right of action in litigation, are hereby entered into this novation as a contractual aspect of our private agreements, meaning that all of these codes are now enforceable in a civil court as a private part of our contractual obligations. And these codes are now active to being causes of action in civil court, right? So this is like the craziest shit ever. This is actually Joey Kimbrough, my right-hand man, the guy you're going to see in Williams & Williams law firm, and then also in some of the later videos about litigation. Brilliant man. This was actually his idea. So we're just about ready to start testing this out. It's going to be super fucking hilarious. I can't wait to see how they handle this. Anything that was previously pledged as collateral on any accounts or loans above and beyond the original promissory note is hereby released and is no longer attached as collateral. We're going to get into how all that works later in the infinite money. It's really not that complicated, but right now it's not something I'm going to get into. More stuff on infinite money here. And naming them as the fiduciary, right? They think they're not the fiduciary, but when you swap some things around, they do become the fiduciary, which is what I'm trying to figure out right now with a lot of my litigation. Your fiduciary duty is to ensure the clean, direct, and honest So basically, like the original promissory notes and stuff that you sign on your mortgages and your cars and stuff, they take it to what's called the Federal Reserve discount window, and they swap it for Federal Reserve notes. Which I'm gonna teach that later, not now. That's all the infinite money stuff, right? So the fiduciary, I'm clarifying that their fiduciary duties are to get that done in a certain way that they normally don't do it, basically, right? So I'm not trying to get all crazy with this, but I'm just showing you. And then here we go. Here's a value and consideration clarification section. To be clear, all lending was never, is not considered consideration because there is no lending going on. But facilitating Federal Reserve services, the discount window. So I'm explaining what is and is not value and consideration. And then now that I've cleaned that up, now we're giving them direct and clear orders, right? So they have a choice. They can either follow the orders or I'm going to sue them for breach of contract and breach of fiduciary duties, right? So that's kind of like, this is my new 2.0 way that I'm doing this. Wasn't doing this for the first 4 cases. I haven't filed these cases yet. I'm doing a lot of sending them letters and building up things, and they're sending me letters, and I'm building up all the evidence. So this is kind of like the new way that I am doing these 2.0 litigation situations. I'm just showing you a little bit of an example of what a novation looks like and what it's based off of. But if you just understand the idea that you can change any contract you want, and there has to be consideration, and you define what that consideration is, you realize that you're actually the one in the driver's seat of all the contracts in your life. I don't need to go through every single contract like I did in 1.0 and explain every single one in great detail. It's just not needed. What is the consideration? What do you consider the consideration? I can't define what you consider valuable. If we go back to the definition of the word value, where was that at? That was 1797. So the question that you have to ask yourself is, what utility am I getting from this object that is satisfying my needs? That's it. If you're not feeling as though there is utility in you in your relationship with your county, the person that you pay. So the way that the counties work is you pay property taxes, and in exchange you get fire and police, and you get when you have to pull permits and stuff, like they consider that as though they're helping you. They're helping you to build a decent pole barn by making sure that the poles and stuff are certain length down in the ground, right? They're helping you by making sure you don't dig up an electrical line, right? So you have to be very, very, very clear about what do you consider to be value and what do you consider to be consideration in all of these various contracts, right? They're not going to have any clue what the hell you're doing. That's why near the end of this course, we're going to be getting into litigation, because you're going to clarify all this and send all this in, and they're just going to be like, what is this? And they have no idea. They don't have any clue about how any of this works. They have no idea about anything. And you're going to kick their door in and drag them into a courtroom and bash their skull in, right? It's going to be awesome. It's the greatest thing ever, okay? So that's the whole point of this course. We're going to go through all the different aspects, and then we're going to teach you how to do that at the end. I'm going to teach you how to do that at the end, okay? And Joey as well will be there as well, helping you, okay? So conditional acceptance is cool, but I don't really use it anymore. Novation is pretty much, but I'm never on the defense. Bro, people I sue won't even counter sue me in the lawsuit, which is literally free. No one will sue me. Like I want people to sue me. Like I literally ask them to sue me, and they will not sue me. Like I'm not kidding. So I have no choice, but I'm completely on the offensive. I've got 13 cases that I'm working on. I'm just like, no one will play with me, literally. So novations are good, because when you're on the offensive and you're trying to like clean all this up and you don't have anybody coming after you, novation is what you're going to be using, not a conditional acceptance, right? So just to be clear about that. And you can look at some of my old videos and stuff about conditional acceptances if you want, but I'm telling you, this information here I'm giving you right now, I'm telling you, is 1,000 times better than any of the stuff I did before. It's just the way it is. I've been studying every day nonstop for 2 years. Okay. As you're starting to learn in this course, words and the definitions of words is the most important thing by far. You should be looking up words constantly. Money does not mean what you think it means. Driver does not mean what you think it means. Motor vehicle does not mean what you think it means. Contract does not mean what you think it means. Value does not mean what you think it means. Consideration does not mean what you think it means. United States does not mean what you think it means. Citizen does not mean, as you can see from this course, nothing means what you think it means. And that's the issue. You are living in a delusional nightmare. And that delusional nightmare is made up of incorrect definitions of words.
Every day, millions of people ask, what is Scientology? Here's an idea. What if you just take a look?
Take for yourself.
What if you see for yourself
No one else can see.
who we are,
No one else.
what we believe,
Take for yourself.
and what we stand for? Our doors are open
See for yourself.
to all people of all faiths in every corner of the world.
Just look inside. You will know it when you see with your own eyes.
So what is Scientology?
See for yourself.
Maybe it's time to look and decide for yourself.
So Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, it's known as the contract clause, okay? No state shall pass any law impairing the obligation of contracts, right? This is also another really powerful thing that we're looking at here. You have the infinite ability to contract or not contract as you see fit. And there's a lot of things that have kind of fallen away, obviously, in the courtroom, such as cars and traveling. That's one of the worst ones. You really got to fight for those ones. The Second Amendment, sometimes you got to fight for those ones. There's certain ones that they've sort of we've allowed them to have way too much power over. Contracts and the infinite right to contract and the infinite ability to contract is still very, very much intact in the court system. They still take this very, very seriously, even to this day. So you got to realize there's a lot of power here. There's a lot of ability to do anything you want here. It's very, very amazing learning more about it. No state shall pass any law impairing the obligation of contracts. And then you see that very, very seriously taken in the United States Code at 15 U.S.C. 1. Every contract, combination in the form of trust or otherwise. So a trust is a contract. And we're going to be getting into that in the next video. We're going to be getting into trusts, right? Trusts are very, very simple. It's a contract for a trustee to take care of an asset on behalf of beneficiaries. That's it. And I know in the last course, 1.0, I didn't really say much about it because I didn't really understand it at all. And it's just taken me a long time to understand it, which is so funny because when I finally understood it, I was like, this is so stupid simple. It's so dumb. Like, why is this so hard for me to understand? But I'll explain all that in the next video, right? So a trust is a kind of contract. So when you see there, when it says every contract, trust or otherwise, you could just kind of remove that. But they're just saying that to be cool, right? But a trust is a contract. So you can just say every contract in restraint of trade or commerce among the several states or with foreign nations is declared to be illegal. Every person who shall make any contract or engage in any combination or conspiracy hereby declared to be illegal shall be deemed guilty of a felony, and on conviction thereof shall be punished by fine not exceeding $100 million if a corporation, or if any other person, 1 million, or by imprisonment not to exceed 10 fucking years in prison. So this is taken very, very seriously. And as you can see, just to kind of get you used to looking at it, you can see here, if this first number is an 18, those are the ones that is Title 18. You don't have private right of action on those. You would need to go to your local DA or your local prosecutor to try to get them to get an indictment signed, and they would need to be the one to pick it up. Since this one's not in Title 18, you can use this one as a private right of action. I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% sure you can use this one in a private right of action. We're going to be using this one for the first time, I think, in one of the cases here pretty soon. But anyways, let's say, for example, you have a business license and they're like shutting down your business because you didn't renew your business license. This is what you can use. So easy, bro. So fucking easy. 15 USC 1. 10 years in prison for trying to stop you in any commercial activity. And I'll tell you, you could even use this for drug trafficking. I mean, this is not a joke, bro. Like, they're coming after you for drug trafficking, and you could, human trafficking wouldn't work because people are like, oh, what about human trafficking? No, because you're hurting people. That would be a violation of common law, right? You can't. They'll say that drug trafficking is hurting people too. So, but then they would need to have actual victim that would need to press charges. So if they don't have a victim that's pressing charges, then you could use something like this for like drug trafficking and stuff. Like you could do. It's crazy what you could do, bro. It's crazy. I mean, there is no way anyone can stop you from doing any sort of exchange or contracting or doing anything you want the way that you want it. The problem that you have, and the problem that we're trying to address in this course, is you don't understand how a contract is put together, and you don't understand how to kill or have or change or adjust or get enforcement on your ideas of what is consideration and what's not, and the fact that you have been wronged. And how do you even know that? How do you even know you've been wronged? Well, anyone stopping you from literally anything contractually or commercially, 15 USC 1, if they're a corporation, 100 million smackaronis. It's a lot. It's a lot. I've never personally seen any financial penalty anywhere that is larger than 15 USC 1. It's the largest financial penalty of literally anything I've ever seen. And this just goes to show you that they take this very, very seriously still, even to this day. It's very serious. It's very, 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 very serious, right? And that's why the whole tickets are all just commercial citations on the side of the road. It's all just a commercial thing. They're just creating these commercial little pieces of paper, and everything's commercial in the stock market and all this craziness, and you're going to learn more and more and more of that as we go forward. But it's all commercial, and that's why it's so free. That's why they turned everything into a commercial system, is because the freedom in commerce is taken very seriously. So it's something that you should be aware of, right? Let's see here. Yeah, Article 1, that, and then there's some shocking words that I wanted to show you the derivation of that are very interesting. The definition, a couple things. The definition of the word word. Definition of the word word. A single, distinct, meaningful element of speech or writing used with others, or sometimes alone, to form a sentence, and typically with a space on either side, written or printed, right? I mean, it's good to know that even something as simple as the word word might be not fully understood by you. The word term, what is the definition of the word term? A term is a word or phrase used to describe a thing or to express a concept, especially in a particular kind of language or branch of study. So it's like a specialized word, right? Like in law and all that, we say non-citizen national of the United States. That would be a term. It's a whole bunch of words, but it's a special thing, series of words used to describe something within a special subject. So that's why I use the word term a lot, because in law we're using a lot of terms, mainly, more so than words. Every word is usually a term in this stuff. That's why it's so difficult to follow, right? And then we have some really strange derivations that I wanted to show you just for fun, just to kind of pique your interest. The word argue by the way, this is actually great. Jeez. I made a whole video about this in the last course in 1.0. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to pause it for a minute. So the word argue is pretty mind-blowing. I made a whole video about it in the last course because it was just so mind-blowing. I forget exactly where I saw the definition of the word argument at this point in time. I'm not going to go look it up. It means to make clear. And you can see that here in argument, an effort to establish belief by a course of reasoning. So argue or argument does not mean what you think it means, where it's like to fight or whatever bullshit people think it means. It means to actually come to a belief of something or an understanding of something through reasoning and to make things clear, right? And you can see that here in the derivation, to make reasoned statements to prove or refute a proposition, maintained an opinion or view, right? To make known, to make clear, make known, prove, declare, demonstrate. Here we go. So this is where I got that from, the derivation here, right? To make clear. I really enjoyed that. That's my favorite one, right? To argue, right? So this is really good too. Look at this one. To make bright, enlighten. Ooh, boy. See, now these are the things that by clearing up these words and looking at this thing in a new way, you're going to have a lot more success in the courtroom. Because if you, and you don't have to, we're not doing all this and going to get into all this because you have to litigate. I know a lot of people don't want to do it, but I'm trying to build this course out in a way where by the end, you'll probably want to do it. Even if like it's the worst thing on the planet right now for you, like it's literally like you'd rather stick your dick in a light socket or sit and spin on a gigantic, delicious cucumber. I'm trying as hard as I can to get you to, at the end of this course, be like pretty down with and like ready to kind of rock and roll with litigation. Whether you do or not, it's up to you. But that's just kind of like where I'm trying to take this because we need to fix a lot of things. And if we don't have people kicking in doors and making this happen, then we're just going to have, this country is just going to go to shit, dude. This is like, I don't think we have a whole lot of time left. We need to do something. So that's why I'm doing this course, and I'll get more into that in the later video when I'll do an introduction about me and talk about me. I wanted to show you the definition or the derivation of the word weird. I thought that was really interesting. And this is just to give you an understanding that you really don't understand the definition of like literally any word in your whole life. Like I'm telling you, the sooner you wake up to that reality, the sooner your life is going to change, dude. Like you literally don't have a fucking clue about anything, and it's okay. I was there for a long time, but we have to get you to that realization. Not to be mean, but once you come to that realization, then you're going to start getting real curious, and then once you get real curious and start looking up every definition of every word, that's when you're going to become a real fucking powerhouse. I assure you. Okay, so we're trying to get you to powerhouse level. We're trying to get you to understand all this stuff, and then we're trying to get you to be able to litigate as a powerhouse. Okay, that's kind of the whole point of this course. That's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so weird. Having power to control fate. Fate, chance, fortune, destiny, the fates. Isn't that cool? Weird means to having the power to control fate. I'm like, wow, okay, I want to be weird. Reason. Right, let me look that up. I want to pause it for a minute. So here's reason. They always say reason with the courts and reasoning in the courts and reasoning with litigation. A faculty of the mind by which it distinguishes truth from falsehood, good from evil, and which enables the possessor to deduce inferences from facts or from propositions, right? So like reason is like being able to see truth from lies and being able to pull truth from like a bunch of pieces of information, right? So reason is really, really important. You'll need to understand that idea. The intellectual facility that adopts actions to ends. Look at that. How cool is that as a derivation, right? Statement in an argument, statement of explanation or justification. So all of litigation is essentially reasoning or arguing. Arguing means to reason, right? So that's why we're looking at this. Course, matter, subject, right? Sanity, degree of intelligence that distinguishes men from brutes. How cool is that? Super cool. By the way, real quick, the whole point of doing all this and the whole point of what we're trying to do is you're trying to paint a picture of what a word means. And when you can really, really paint a picture in your head and you have like something just clicks and you're like, okay, I really got it now. That's kind of what we're trying to get to with most words. We're trying to get to that point with the word where it just kind of clicks. So typically, you want to keep looking at different definitions and derivations and stuff until the word really clicks into place. I'm a Scientologist, like I said earlier, and that's kind of a technology that I learned from L. Ron Hubbard. And let me see if I can find Scientology free course on study technology. The technology of study course. If you want to learn more about the technology of study that I've used for many, many years and that I use on, and basically without this, I wouldn't be able to do anything that I am doing with law at all. It's a free course and you can start it here. It says it takes about 6 or 7 hours to do the course. I think it's free. If not here, I'm sure it's free somewhere else. Let me see. Start now. I think it's free. Anyways, I wanted to show you that in case you're interested in finding out how does Brandon do all this? How does he look up all these words and do all that? And the answer to that question is this study technology here. And I'm very, very proud to say that. It's I couldn't read before I learned this technology. Literally. Couldn't read at all. So it took me many years to get up and running. I'll tell you more about that later on my video. But I've been looking up every single definition of every single word, and I've been looking at the derivation of words constantly, all day, every day, since probably around 2010, 2011. So that's why this whole legal thing is so easy. I've been doing this for quite some time, professionally, I guess you could say. So reason, right, has some really interesting stuff here to be said, right? And we have nice. I wanted to show you guys this one. It's really funny. Nice. It means foolish, ignorant, frivolous, senseless. Careless, clumsy, weak, poor, needy, simple, stupid, foolish, silly, ignorant, unaware, not knowing. I love this. Timid, faint-hearted, fussy, fastidious, dainty, delicate. And then all of a sudden, it became precise, careful, right? But most of the time throughout all of history, nice means you're a dumb fuck, basically, right? Which I find pretty funny. Family. Look at this one. Servants of a household. Family servants. Domestics, collectively, the servants in a household. That was pretty interesting. Servants, right? Servant, slave. It's pretty wild, huh? I thought that was kind of crazy. I wanted to show you guys that. And idiot. Right? Idiot. This is fascinating, especially for what we're learning in this course. Private person, as opposed to one taking part in public affairs, which means government affairs. The word idiot means non-government worker, non-citizen. It meant that quite a long time ago, it looks like. When was it? 12th century? Kind of interesting, right? They turned it into something bad. Interesting, huh? The idea of defining a word, by the way. I wanted to go over that with you as the last thing here, it looks like. Defining a word, the reason why words make you feel confused is because they're limitless. They don't have any limits, right? So the entire entire point of defining a word is to bring it down and to clarify the boundaries of the meaning of the word. It's to basically build walls around the word so that you can understand the boundaries of it and the boundaries of its meaning and usage. That's the whole point of the idea of defining anything, right? What it means to limit. That's it right there. To limit, determine, explain, right? To bound or limit completely. So the exact and specific boundaries determine, declare, or mark the limit of. That is what you're doing when you're looking up the definitions of words, terms, and phrases. You're looking to figure out in your own mind and feel really good about the mark or limitation of the meaning of words, terms, and phrases. And that's what you're looking for. That's what you're trying to figure out all the time, right? So when you feel as though it's like, oh yeah, it seems very limitless and there's no boundaries, it makes you feel like very lost in space kind of a feeling, right? And when you really clarify everything and you really tie it all down and you determine and declare and mark the limit of it, and you take the time to actually do that for the word, term, or phrase, all of a sudden it clicks into place, and then now you can use it, and now you are in control of it, and you are the boss of your own future. And that's how you're going to win any of this stuff or any of this litigation or any of these contracts, is through the war of the definitions of words. Okay? So that's it. That's a bunch of videos from number 1 that I wanted to kind of roll in here at the end. So that's all I wanted to go over for this third video. I will see you guys at video number 4. Bye-bye.